Imagine standing in the middle of the Australian outback, no shops, no towns, no roads. Just endless red earth and the crackling sound of a campfire. In your hands is a simple, golden loaf that kept thousands of travelers alive. This is the story of damper. Damper is one of the oldest and most iconic foods in Australian history. Long before modern kitchens existed, early settlers, drovers, and bushworkers relied on this simple bread for survival. Australia's vast landscape meant long journeys, harsh climates, and very little access to supplies. So they needed food that was easy to carry, easy to prepare, and filling enough to keep them going. Damper was the perfect solution. It was made from just a few basic ingredients: flour, water, and sometimes milk or salt. These ingredients could be carried in bags on horseback for weeks at a time without spoiling. When the workers stopped to rest at night, they mixed the dough by hand and placed it directly into the ashes of the campfire or baked it in cast-iron pots, known as camp ovens. The simplicity of damper is what makes it so historically significant. It represents the rough, rugged, and self-reliant lifestyle that defined early Australia. Every loaf told a story of men crossing the continent on foot, of stockmen driving cattle through the outback, and of communities living far from civilization. To this day, damper remains a symbol of Australian heritage, reminding us of the resilience, resourcefulness, and grit of the people who shaped the nation's early history. They weren't just biscuits. They were messages of love, hope, and survival packed into a tin and sent across oceans to soldiers who didn't know if they'd ever come home. ANZAC Biscuits are one of Australia's most meaningful foods, born not out of celebration, but out of sacrifice and war. During World War I, thousands of young Australian and New Zealand soldiers, known as the ANZACs, were sent to battlefields far from home. Communication was slow, life was brutal, and families wanted to send something that reminded their sons, brothers, and husbands that they were loved. But there was a problem. Most foods spoiled long before reaching the front lines. So families created a special recipe, one that could survive months at sea, humidity, heat, and rough transport. They used ingredients that didn't go bad easily: rolled oats, flour, sugar, coconut, and golden syrup. There were no eggs, because eggs would spoil. Instead, golden syrup acted as the binder, giving the biscuits their unique, chewy texture and long shelf life. When these biscuits finally reached the trenches, they were more than just food. They were emotional lifelines. 4 soldiers living in mud-filled trenches, surrounded by danger and uncertainty. Opening a tin of ANZAC biscuits meant feeling the warmth of home again. Every bite carried memories of family kitchens, handwritten recipes, and the hands that prepared them with love and worry. They symbolized everything the soldiers were fighting for: family, comfort, and the hope of returning home. During World War II, the tradition continued. Mothers, wives, and volunteers baked them in huge numbers, filling care packages for troops stationed across Europe and Asia. The biscuits were durable, nutritious, and most importantly, deeply meaningful. Today, ANZAC biscuits are not just a snack. They are a tribute. A reminder of the courage, sacrifice, and emotional resilience of both the soldiers and the families left behind. Every year on ANZAC Day, people still bake them, not just to enjoy, but to remember the human stories baked into every crumb. It's salty, it's strong, and it divides the world. But for Australians, this little black spread is more than a taste, it's an identity. Vegemite is one of the most famous and, sometimes most misunderstood foods in Australian history. Its story begins in 1923, at a time when Australia was facing an unusual problem. After World War I, the supply of Marmite, a British yeast spread, had dropped dramatically. People were looking for an alternative, and Australia needed a local solution. Enter Cyril Collister, a young chemist with a difficult mission: create a nutritious spread entirely from Australian ingredients. He used leftover brewer's yeast, a product that had nearly no value, and transformed it with vegetables, salt, and a unique blend of spices. The result was a dark, thick, intensely flavored paste, unlike anything else in the world. When Vegemite first hit the shelves, Australians didn't instantly fall in love with it. Its bold taste shocked many people. But slowly, through clever advertising and nutrition campaigns, Vegemite worked its way into the national diet. During the 1930s and 40s, doctors even recommended it for its high vitamin B content, especially for children. World War II changed everything. As Australian soldiers served overseas, Vegemite became part of their ration packs. It reminded them of home, of breakfast tables, and of simple moments far away from the battlefield. Families at home often faced shortages of many foods, but Vegemite remained a staple, something familiar and comforting during uncertain times. By the 1950s, it had become a symbol of growing up in Australia. Parents spread it on toast for breakfast, packed it into school lunches, and passed the taste from one generation to the next. Vegemite wasn't just food anymore, it was a cultural tradition. Today, Vegemite stands as an icon. It represents Australian humor, identity, and pride. It's a flavor that outsiders might not understand, but Australians embrace it wholeheartedly. A small jar of Vegemite can instantly transport someone back to childhood memories, suburban mornings, and the unmistakable spirit of the country. It tells a story of resilience, creativity, and national unity, proof that even the humblest ingredients can become powerful symbols of who a nation is. If you've ever held a warm pie in your hands on a cold morning, you're not just eating food. You're holding a piece of Australian history. The Australian meat pie is more than a quick snack, it is one of the most enduring symbols of Australia's working-class culture. Its story stretches back to the 1800s, when Australia was still being shaped by farmers, miners, drovers, and laborers who needed food that was cheap, filling, and easy to eat on the move. In those early years, life was tough, and time was precious. Workers didn't have long lunch breaks or comfortable kitchens. What they needed was something hot, hearty, and portable, something you could hold in one hand while working with the other. This is where the meat pie became part of daily life. Bakeries across the country began making simple pies filled with minced meat, gravy, and vegetables. They were inexpensive, satisfying, and perfect for anyone spending hours in the fields, mines, or rail yards. As towns grew and industries expanded, the meat pie became the unofficial fuel of the working class. By the early 1900s, the pie had evolved from a local bakery treat into a national staple. It appeared at sporting matches, horse races, and local fairs. At Australian rules football games, fans gathered with a hot pie in hand, creating a tradition that still continues. Whether you were rich or poor, city or countryside, the pie belonged to everyone. But the story doesn't end with convenience, it's also a story of identity. The Australian meat pie represents qualities that shaped the country: practicality, simplicity, and community. It is the flavor of early mornings at job sites, children rushing to school canteens, and weekend gatherings. It connects generations, reminding people of childhood lunches, road trips, and grand final days. Over time, the pie has adapted. Gourmet versions appeared. New flavors emerged, and bakeries competed for the best pie title. Yet the heart of the meat pie remains unchanged. A warm, comforting meal wrapped in golden pastry, always ready to be eaten with one hand and loved with the other. Today, the meat pie stands as a living memory of Australia's hard-working past and its proudly everyday culture. It's not just a food, it's a national ritual. It's light, it's sweet, and it sparked one of the longest food debates in history. But, for Australians, Pavlova is pure celebration. Pavlova is one of the most beloved desserts in Australian history. But its story begins with a dancer, world-famous ballerina named Anna Pavlova. In the 1920s, she toured Australia and New Zealand, captivating audiences with her elegance, grace, and almost weightless movements. Her performances were so breathtaking that chefs wanted to honor her with a dessert as light and delicate as her dancing. That inspiration led to the creation of Pavlova, a crisp meringue shell with a soft, marshmallow-like center, topped with fresh cream and fruit. But here's where the drama begins. Both Australia and New Zealand claim to have invented it first. Newspaper articles, cookbooks, and family stories from both sides argue over its true origin. Was it first baked in a New Zealand hotel in 1926? Or did an Australian chef create it in honor of her tour? The dispute has lasted nearly a century, but what really matters is how deeply this dessert became woven into Australian culture. Over time, Pavlova became a symbol of celebration. It appeared at Christmas lunches, birthday parties, family gatherings, and national holidays. The bright colors of the fruit, especially kiwi and berries, made it not only delicious, but visually festive. It was sweet but not heavy perfect for Australia's warm summers. Families passed down their Pavlova recipes like treasures. Everyone had their own secret: a pinch of corn flour for softness, a splash of vinegar for shine, or a slow oven to keep it from cracking. Making a Pavlova became more than baking it, became tradition, memory, and love. The dessert reflects something uniquely Australian: the ability to take inspiration from the world and shape it into something that feels like home. Just like the people who first arrived on these shores, Pavlova blends simplicity with creativity, elegance with comfort. Today, Pavlova is not just a dessert. It is a celebration of culture, history, and identity, served with pride at every major event. And so, from the dusty outback fires of the early settlers to the trenches of wartime biscuits, from the bold taste of Vegemite to the warm comfort of a meat pie, and the sweet joy of Pavlova, Australia's foods tell the story of a nation built on resilience, tradition, and flavor. These dishes aren't just meals, they're chapters of history, still savored today.